Hello, guys. Welcome to my session. My name is Ming. I'm the co founder of the Hacker Collective, and Hacker Collective is a technology company. And we're a startup. We're running for about 2.5 years now, and we focus on building technology startups. We focus on training, education, which I'll share more as well. Today's topic's about the personal lessons I learned running a startup builder. Why I call startup builder is because, as I mentioned, Hacker Collective builds multiple startups. We don't just build one startup. And how we do this is we kind of partner with people, right? So that's really what we do. Now, let's talk about us fundamentally, right? So when I say we teach, build, fund, and market, we are literally trying to cover the whole life cycle of a startup life, a startup journey, really, right? So our journey started about two and a half 2.5 years ago when I started a coding school because I was just frustrated with education in Malaysia. I couldn't find enough technology people to help build my startups, to build my projects. So you know what I said? If I cannot find people, I'm gonna teach. So we started coding school and we started teaching people. It started small, right? After 6 months in, one of my students, Derek, who is my co-founder of Hacker Collective, he said, "Hey, you're doing all this. Can I join you?" And I was a bit busy with software projects. I was being held up. So ultimately, he said, "Hey, no worries. I'll be happy for him to join me and help me grow the thing with him." So fundamentally, hey, Leon, fundamentally, we joined together, and then it was me and my business partner, and we started growing the school together, right? So when we grew the school, and ultimately we were getting a lot of students, and we were asking ourselves, okay, with all these students, right, what can we do? So it turns out they all wanted jobs, they all wanted work, so we said, why not we hire them? And that's when we started hiring them, and we started building our own software as well. So then, those that teach but don't build, what's the point, right? So we say we do both teach and build technology. And so right now we're working on a variety of startups from all different industries. And a lot of them we partner with entrepreneurs outside, but some of them we also do in-house, right? Then third thing is we fund startups. So I don't know if you guys read the news, but recently there was this article talking about 1337 Ventures and how they are saying the whole startup ecosystem is very fragmented. That's the issue with Malaysia. We have a very fragmented startup ecosystem. So a lot of times there's a lot of angel investors out there who actually want to give back to community, right? But these angel investors are often retirees or just senior people that have no way of reaching out to startups. So what we do when we say we fund is we connect entrepreneurs to angel investors who are willing to fund, young up and coming entrepreneurs with great ideas. Investors give their knowledge, then they give some funds to start the business. And ultimately, lastly, what we do is we market the startups as well. So we teach, build, fund, but now when you fund the startup, well, what do you have to do? You have to market it, right? So when we say we market, we focus mostly on digital marketing because that's where our specialty is. We have technology with us, and therefore we can use the technology to automate the marketing funnel and all that. But ultimately, the business itself lies in the hands of the entrepreneur. So that's really us as a startup builder. That's what we do, right? By the way, we are working with a lot of startups. If you're keen to join us, please check our website. So why the name Hacker? And we're called the Hacker Collective, right? What's with this word hacker? Now, that's what I wanted to mention when we say mindset. Ultimately, the word hacker comes from what I believe is needed in every single entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur needs to have a mindset that they want to make a change, they want to make progress, right? And when an entrepreneur wants to make progress and change, they need to think outside the box, because no one can really create innovation and create disruptions and create startups without thinking outside the box, without doing something new, something novel. If you're doing something that's really replicated over and over again, and you're not adding new value, then what's the point of doing it, right? So hackers The very definition of the word hacker means to think outside the box, to do something not for its intended purpose. So that's why I like the word hacker, because hacker has negative connotations, but I feel in the future the word hacker will be a very positive meaning. Hacker meaning someone who is creative, is innovative, and knows how to use something and repurpose something for its not for its intended purpose, but change it, do something differently, right? And that's why hacker mindset requires a shift in thinking totally. Where people see problems, hackers see solutions or problems waiting to be solved, and they immediately naturally think of solutions all the time, right? And once you get in that habit of thinking with a hacker mindset, you're always going to be thinking with a hacker mindset. Everywhere you go, every problem you see, you just want to solve it. You're itching to solve it. And so the Hacker Collective was born to go and try and gather these group of hackers, people that hack. You can be a car hacker, food hacker, whatever hacker you want to be, right? Engineering hacker, you can be a lifestyle hacker, you can be a sleep hacker. It's really the mindset of how you want to improve and innovate. So that's really the hacker mindset. If you look at this picture, you can clearly see Facebook. It's not just us who are saying it. Facebook, one of the companies, world's most biggest company out there, they call themselves one hacker away. Facebook understands, and they have written articles about it. They understand the concept and mindset of this word hacker and what it means to be a hacker. So today's topic, as the title, we're going to talk about lessons I learned running a startup builder. So I'm here to share with you a few tips and strategies from things I have learned over my time of this past 2.5 years running the Hacker Collective, growing. Now we're up to about 10 startups, and really seeing the life cycle journey, right? By the way, just a short introduction. My personal background is actually not in tech. I actually changed my career halfway through. I've been working for my whole career spans about 8 years now, or 9 years, right? Since I started working. But halfway through that journey, my first half of my career was actually in finance, was actually in marketing at Samsung, was actually doing business and sales and merchandising and logistics industries. So I spent a good half of my career in business, understanding everything there is to know about business. But then halfway through, I changed my career and became a technologist. And I taught myself programming. And that was the second half of the last good 4 to 5 years. Was really in just programming and tech and software. So now with Hacker Collective, I combine my two knowledge together, business and tech combined together. And so that's why Hacker Collective is such a good blend, of doing business but also providing tech services. So that's why we have a unique advantage. So if anyone got any questions, by the way, feel free to ask. Happy to answer as we go along. So I have approximately about 6 strategies that I want to share with you guys that I feel works very well for any startup, right? So the first strategy I really want to share, and this is what we do at Hacker Collective, right, is the strategy of taking many small bets. When you talk about taking small bets, what does it really mean fundamentally, right? The metaphor I like is very simple, You don't know what will work, but you try many things. Fail fast, fail cheap mentality, right? That's what Google says all the time. The thing is, you got to try many things and you got to fail fast at it and you got to fail cheap, then move on. Because you know what they say in startup world? When you do a startup, 9 out of 10 startups fail. That very famous quote everyone likes to throw around. So if you stick on one startup, you're 90% chance likely to fail. But if you can throw many small strategic bets and you can synergize them somehow, your chances of success now become 1/9. Okay, yes, because you're 90% chance to fail. But now the odds of you succeeding in one, because it's a plus, 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9. So your probability goes higher, right? If you do the maths, 1/9 plus 1/9 plus 1/9, it becomes what? 33%. So 1 over 9 is, well, 10% chance, 90% chance you will. So you got 10% chance of success with 1 over 9. But if you have 3 startups and you add the sort of probability of 1 over 9 plus 1 over 9 plus 1 over 9, now your chance of success is 33%, right? And if you do 4 startups, your chance of success is 44%. And if you do 5 startups, your chance of success is 55%. So the chances of one startup succeeding and growing big is 55%. Some people have told me, Ming, you're wrong. It's not 1 over 9 plus 1 over 9. It's 1 over 9 times 1 over 9. Your chance of success goes down. I beg to differ. If you can really, if every startup you have, you grow it with resources, right? So what we do at a Hacker Collective when we take many small bets is every startup, every bet we take, we don't spread our resources thin. We add resources to grow that bet, right? So if I have one startup, we will allocate, okay, you got one business person, one marketer, for example, for that startup, right? If I have 3 or 4 startups, we have to add resources for the 3 or 4 startups. That's how we scale and grow. If you have just one business developer and you split that one business person over 3 to 4 startups, then your chance of success is going to be slimmer and slimmer and slimmer because you're spreading that one person thin, right? So that's firstly one of the strategy. We take many small bets. We focus on really specific startups and we build the MVP and go at market as fast as possible. And that's the only way we can monetize and have a chance of making a big hit fundamentally, right? So I like to call it throw out many snowballs down the hill and see which one causes an avalanche. Because ultimately startups is a black box. You can never really predict the future. You don't know what you don't know. So why take all the risk on one single startup when we can do multiple? Another thing that is interesting with this strategy as well is what I realize is startups need time to grow. They need time to grow. You don't take 100,000 ringgit and hire like 4 or 5 marketeers and developers and build the startup in the beginning. You're gonna waste your money. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes in the beginning because sometimes you realize you hire people, you hire a team for an intended strategy. But that strategy almost always never works out in the beginning because you don't know what's going to happen. 6 months down the road, you can say, oh my goodness, we went down the wrong path. We actually were supposed to take this path instead because, and that's why they call startup pivoting, right? It's another very famous word in startup world, pivots. Startup always make pivots due to the changing dynamics of the environment, of the economy, of competitors. Everything changes, right? So startup needs time to explore in the beginning. So you need to hire one developer, one marketer, slowly explore. But as you're slowly exploring, what do you do with the rest of your money? Because ultimately time is money, and if you need to take your time to slowly explore one startup, like I said, your chance of success is only 1 over 9. So you're going to take a year, you're going to explore this startup, you're going to maybe fail. Take a second year, explore a startup, maybe fail. Take a third startup, explore it, maybe you succeeded. That's 3 years. Whereas with the same amount of money you have, 100,000 ringgit, or whatever currency it is, you straight away do 3 startups in the first year itself. So in the first year, 2 of them would fail, but the third one would succeed. Because you would immediately hire 3 people, but these 3 people work on 3 different startups. And you can pivot these startups along the way. So our strategy here goes by the best of both worlds. And that's really what we're up to. So next strategy I want to share with you all is systemizing everything. This is what we do as well when we do our business. Right now we have about 20 people in the company. We realized as we gotten bigger, we need to start systemizing, because systemizing is the only way you can really scale the business and manage the business, especially when you grow bigger, right? If you're a one-man guy, sure. But if you're 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, 100, I mean, as you get bigger, you need to start using systems to automate things, to track things, because at the end of the day, you can't be having a lot of managers after managers after managers, right? The thing with startups in the beginning as well, often they say, we don't have time, we just got to move fast, we got to move quick. Fine. But guess what? Not in the beginning, but as you go even to a 10-man team, it's going to get messy and chaotic. It really is. And that's why you're going to hire a lot of marketers, a lot of business, hire a lot of admin people to do a lot of really meaningless, useless work that you can really systemize it, right? And people are always the most unreliable thing. I'm not saying bad about people, but I'm saying humans like a robot. You can't ask a robot to work 24 hours. You can't track a robot. A robot has emotions. Let humans do what humans are best at, the creative work, the work that really makes big impact. And this is, so as a techie, I have really been fairly obsessed with trying to take whatever human work we have done previously, and always say ourselves, I always ask myself, can we build a system out of this? Can we build a system out of this? In anything, creating a marketing plan, writing a report, doing sales, doing marketing, all the roles of a human you think they do, accounting, HR, whatever, can we build systems around it, right? And I think, one of our edge as well, us as a tech company, and this will go to my next point, because we are fundamentally a tech company, it is very affordable and fast for us to build our own tech, to really go out there and systemize everything, right? Because you may ask yourself, nice, systemize everything. How are you going to do it, right? If you don't own your own technology, it's fine. There's a lot of existing systems out there in the marketplace, right? A lot of cloud SaaS software. Use them because they will help bring order to chaos. And startups cannot survive without chaos, not for 1 year. Next, tech is your edge. So if you haven't known by now, we are first and foremost a tech company. Secondly, we're a startup builder, right? So why tech is your edge? Because tech is everywhere, right? And now fundamentally most new innovations happen on the tech side, because that's faster to innovate, right? You can't change accounting, you can't change a law firm. Accounting and law is set in stone forever, right? You can't change the rules, but what you can change is how you innovate in tech and accounting. How you innovate in accounting and law is through tech. That's the only way that people can somehow bring in new innovations to old industries and old and established businesses, right? That's the only space really to so-called squeeze out and find out new ways of doing things. So technology can help you provide better customer service. It may help you lower your costs. It may help you automate things, make your business more efficient. These are all the areas where technology can complement existing businesses. So that's why I always say, if any business you're running, whatever business it is, never outsource the tech, because the tech is where you're going to squeeze out the innovations and differentiate you from your customers. Because everyone runs an accounting firm and they're all the same, debits and credits. There's nothing you can do differently. So how are you going to get a competitive edge over your competitors is only through technology. And if that's your only edge, you want to make sure that edge stays with you within the company, not outside. And your edge is a long-term game. You don't want to have an edge just for a few short periods of time then stop, right? So that's why when I say in-house, I mean you only can do two things, right? Either hire tech people or partner with a tech company. Don't outsource, partner. Partner means you still, how our model works is like us as a partner, right? You pay us a fee still, but it's a minimal reduced fee, something where we don't even make a profit. But in return, we have equity in your business. That's how it works. And therefore, us as a company now, our alignments is no more how can we extract as much money from you. No, it's more of how can we help you succeed, because when you succeed, we succeed. And that's the model that Hacker Collective is trying to play in. So this is Tech is Your Edge. Let's move on. Building an awesome team. So, guys, how to build an awesome team. I never truly realized this until later on in my startup journey. Especially when I wanted to do startups, you're often like a 1-2 man people, 3 people, right? I could never really realize. You always think that, oh, the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is so used to doing everything. The founder has like knows everything. He does the best. He moves the fastest. But guess what? You eventually got to learn to let go, because I realized even with us, and we're still a small company, right? We're not big by any means, but even at just our small size of people, we realized that you still need to have good team leaders, not just good employees, team leaders in the company. Because if you want to scale, you need to always trust people to help you. You can never do everything yourself. That's the real difficulty. If not, you won't have a life, number one. You won't have a life, number one, but number two, ultimately you hit a limit. You only have 24 hours in a day, right? So now that we know building a team is important, how to build a team is another thing altogether. Everybody wants to build a team, but it's not so easy to build a team. Firstly, you got to find the right people. Okay, and I like to say a single right person can be worth 10 average people. One person can make a huge difference, because so that's why it's so important to interview. I just read an article the other day. I was watching a video, sorry. Elon Musk, right, the most celebrated entrepreneur in history right now. Even when his company, Tesla, had up to 500 people, he personally interviewed every single one of them. Because when you bring in the wrong people to a company, they're stuck in there. Firing people is not nice. It can be hard. It drains the energy from the other employees. You need to get the right people, right? Because they feed back off each other as well. So one model we take is the Netflix model. I'm going to look it up, Netflix Culture. It's such an amazing document. It fundamentally talks about a few things: autonomy, talent density. You need to have not just a talented company, a talent dense company. So basically, out of every 10 people in the company, how many talented ones are there, right? So if out of 10 people, for every 10 people, you have 5 who are very talented. Therefore, your talent density is 50%. So it's not the number of talented people you have, but how dense it is, right? Why? Because when you're talent dense, everybody automatically becomes more talented as well. When you get 5 talented people and 1 average person, the average person will get pulled up by the talented people because the environment is talented. But if you got 5 average people and 1 talented person, same thing. The average people will pull down the talented person, and now you have 6 average people. So that's why always have the majority talent dense. So at least if you're 51% and above talent density, you're on the right track, right? Secondly, when building the right team, because you're talent dense, we can offer autonomy. And this is what Netflix was saying. Autonomy is critical because you don't want to micromanage everything. You want to empower people. You want to give them responsibilities. You want to give them choices. You want to give them freedom. And talented people love freedom. But they need to be talented to be given autonomy. So that's the second point, right? So what happens when you have an awesome team? Or how do you get the talented people in? How? You got to sell the vision. Target your customers. They're often your biggest believers anyways. And give equity. Equity is a shared success model. I don't know why most companies are so tight about equity, 100% of 0 is 0, right? You might as well take 5% of like 100 million or something, So giving equity out to me is a no-brainer, right? Either equity or options. Fundamentally, there needs to be a way for your staff to have some form of ownership in the company. Bonus doesn't count, okay? Bonus is bonus, that's separate, but equity gives them real ownership of the business and real success and real choices. So those are, I feel, the 3 ways you can really build, to find an awesome team and build an awesome team, right? Another one. Build it and they will fund it. This is an interesting statement I realize, and this is something I realize a lot of startups do it differently as well. A lot of startups have an idea, go out, raise funding, and then launch a startup. But that's the few stories you hear. I honestly say right now we live in an age where there's too many startups out there. Investors have too much choices. Often it's really hard to just so-called fund first then build. Most investors, I would say, unless they're really your good friends or they're those rare angel investors, which is us. But generally, I would say, you want to make life easier, grow something first. Do it the slow way. Generate revenue. Make it a business first. It will take you, yes, 6 months to a year, maybe. You're growing slowly, you're bootstrapping. This is a traditional business model. Yes, you're right. But when you focus on the business first, right? You firstly test out the product, make sure it's viable. You're growing something. You're making money out of it, right? Even if you don't receive funding in the beginning, you still have money coming to this business that you can self-sustain and self-fund yourself, right? Because as a startup, you need to be focusing your business. The moment you take your eye off the ball as a startup, you're gonna die. So if you're the entrepreneur going out there talking to investors, trying to raise funds, you might end up with one. You might, right? You'll be like indebted to the investor. You just have to be stuck on this one single path. You're always using fundraising money. You don't learn how to build revenue channels because you're relying on fundraising. And then the moment the money runs out, you're dead, right? Fundraising becomes like a crutch, right? So I would say Hacker Collective, we're honestly blessed to have some really, really good business people. Derek, my co-founder of Hacker Collective, runs a very tight ship in terms of business. We really focus on all the revenue. So we play a two-pronged game, right? Yes, revenue is one stream. That's the short-term profits. And then we play a long-term game where we focus on startups, get equity, and that's the long-term game. So when you must have balance. You never just totally rely on one model, fundraising, and all your money comes from fundraising. You never want to do that, right? So building up revenue streams is always a very, very good way to go. And so far, honestly, we haven't fundraised a single thing. We're all self-sustaining. So this is, I would say, one of our unique strategies that I would recommend people to take as well. Next, this is an interesting insight. Don't follow the crowd. I remember this statement and I put it there as well. If you do what the average startup does, then you will be an average startup. Does it not make sense? If you're following what everyone does, then you will be like everyone else. It's logical, right? So, what's the trick? Be different. Really. Just be different for the sake of being different. Even make dumb decisions if you have to. Fundamentally, when you are different, that's your edge. They say, oh, what's so good about this business model? No one else does this business model. What's so good about this idea? Because no one else has done it, that's why it's a good idea. Some of the time, of course. Yeah, you got a lot of wacky, crazy ideas, but that's the risk. But fundamentally, you have to be different. If you're not different, if you're playing by the same rules as everyone else, if you're operating by the same game, you're never going to beat the competition because you and the competition are the same. So things like just now, fundraising, right? Most startups go out and try and raise funds and they just rely on the funds, right? Whereas we don't. So we play by different rules. We have different strategies. We have different mindsets, right? And it's interesting. I would say that's why China is so successful. If I can relate it back to some geopolitics, China doesn't play by the same rules as everyone else in the world. America is a democracy. America is the most superpower in democracy, right? But because America is a democracy, and when everyone else plays by the same rules America plays, no one can surpass America, because everyone is like them, but they're just 10, 15 years behind. How can you beat the guy in front if you're following his every step? They're always gonna be ahead. And that's why I must say China can do it differently. And that's one of the unique things about China, right? China plays by different rules that no one else plays. China is like a communist country or whatever, right? Nobody plays by the same rules. So they operate by entirely different rules, and that's why they can leapfrog and so-called jump the curve so much. It's because they operate by a different set of rules fundamentally, right? One unique thing definitely you should work on is unique business models. One thing we learn a lot whenever you look at a startup, think about the business models, because it's by the business models that you can really determine the success of a business, not by the finances or numbers or the marketing plan. Yeah, those are fine, but a business model will tell you so much about a business, whether it's sustainable, whether it's scalable, where's the unique edge. Business models will even tell you about costing, fundamentally, right? Because if you operate a Grab or you operate a traditional taxi, you know by the business model. If you're outsourcing all your drivers to just average citizens and you're outsourcing all the cars to just these drivers, you definitely know your cost is going to be much different, or probably even lower than what a traditional taxi company does, where they have to buy the taxis, they have to hire the drivers. The business model already tells you whether something is worth doing or not. So learn to study business models, learn to analyze business models, and learn to create new business models. From there, you will have a very good chance of creating something unique as a startup. I recommend Business Model Generation, Alexander Osterwald, something like that. It's a fairly good book, right? Look it up, and you can get a lot of ideas from there. So, I'm moving on towards the last few sections of my business. So let's talk about starting a startup in Malaysia, right? What is starting a startup in Malaysia all about? So one thing I would want to say is we are in a unique country, right? Really, if you think about it in the whole world, we're in a unique country where if you want to start a startup, honestly, Malaysia's the best place. We're the best place for 3 key reasons, right? So let me share with you the first thing. We have amazing talent at low cost, right? If you think about it, our talent, where we're cheap, not say it's a good thing, but we're cheap, right? And we speak good English, and we have talented people because our people know English. They can learn very well. So Malaysia has a very rare balance. You got Singapore is too expensive, and you got the rest of Southeast Asian countries that most of them don't speak English. So Malaysia sits right in the middle of cheap and good. Very rare to find cheap and good. However, I would say always pay people top market, regardless how cheap you can get, and pay them top of the Malaysian market. Because to attract the best talent, you're going to need to pay a good salary. It's what we realize. And learn to pay people well. If you pay people well, they'll be more satisfied, they'll be more happy. They'll realize that, wow, you value them, you cherish them, right? The company doesn't need to squeeze out money from the employees, right? Squeeze more money from the customers, don't squeeze money from the employees, right? So, moving on. Don't expect easy access to capital. Yeah, this one thing about Malaysia is I would say that we don't really have a lot of funds to begin with. This is just me and my experience trying to get fundraising in Malaysia, or just even looking around. Where I haven't actively looked for funds, but just looking around. We're quite a risk-averse culture, right? I was looking up a very famous video by Jeremy. I can't remember his full name. Jeremy. He's the founder of a very famous startup in America called Kaggle. Okay, he was saying that some countries are so advanced in their startup ecosystem, they have tons of money pouring in. I think the statistics was something like for all the total fundraising happening in Malaysia, it's like equivalent to like 1 day of like a Singapore fundraising amount, something like that. Like, it's crazy, right? Like, all the capital out there or whatever, right? It's equivalent to just like the amount of capital being funded was like 100 times more in some countries than other countries. So be aware of our space in Malaysia. We don't have huge access capital, especially for very early stage startups. So people here are very risk averse as well. So don't rely on that if you're in Malaysia, right? Government grants, they tend to give out to a lot more stable startups, especially in Malaysia. They don't give small grants. They tend to give bigger amounts, 300,000 ringgit, to a more established startup, right? So funds can be hard to come by. Now, third thing I want to say about Malaysia though is we are a very good launch pad for regional expansion, because whenever you want to go and expand across the region, you need to have a solid base of people to go out from, right? Malaysia is a good starting point. We are low cost, but we have good talent. I would say that alone is a very, very good factor already to set up your base, because you can have all your people still in Malaysia, right? But then, start marketing out towards Southeast Asia. A lot of people say you could be based in Singapore as well. Singapore is normally where you can get all the funds, fundamentally. So most people do a two-prong approach, right? They set up a company in Singapore just to extract all the funds, to get funds, right? But they set up their base of operations in Malaysia because that's where all the staff is and that's where their cost center is. So cost center in Malaysia, revenue center in Singapore. Malaysian government may not like it, but revenue is going to Singapore, but fundamentally you're hiring people in Malaysia, and that's a good thing, right? Singapore government may not like it too, because you're leveraging off their ecosystem, but you're not really hiring anybody there. So it's both pros and cons to this. Okay, starting a startup in Southeast Asia, and I did cover some pointers just now, right? So how lessons we learned trying to build. We haven't exactly expanded Southeast Asia that much, but we did try and reach out and build, try and reach out to market to other people in different Southeast Asian countries. So leverage off your neighbors, right? Like I mentioned earlier, Singapore is a very big and very good startup ecosystem. Work with them, have a base there. I cannot stress this enough. It's so important to have a base there, right? Next, build local communities. Yeah, one thing about Southeast Asia is we're not like Europe. The thing with Europe is that they have a very standardized market, same, not similar languages, but standardized markets that easy travel, easy access, everything, where you can move freely. Southeast Asia, no, right? We're Southeast Asia, but we're still technically a collection of very separate countries, different languages, different cultures, different rules and regulations. You're gonna find the right partner, right? And one thing I realized is to get started in a new country, always learn to build a community first. Because when you build the community first, that's where you attract all the talent and all the people to want to help you. So how to build a community? What I realized was platforms like Slack and Discord are very, very nice, because Slack and Discord, they're chat rooms, right? But what better way to form connections with people in another country other than chat rooms? Because you can chat to them, you can talk to them, it's live, you can video call them, whatever things they can discuss. So chat rooms are very dynamic, right? Yes, there's a place for Facebook, LinkedIn, or forums, but chat rooms are where people can just chat with each other live, non-stop, and ask things and all that. So that's why I feel chat rooms could be a very interesting medium for community building, especially in different countries. You of course got to find your community leaders to operate those chat rooms, but once those community leaders are there, they start inviting people to the chat room and start discussing about topics. That's how you start building a following. And I think, oops, this is not the right picture. Okay, yes, sorry. This is, oops, sorry. Okay, wrong slides. I want to end off with this statement. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. I love this statement. To end it off, if you ever want to jump on this startup journey and build your own startup, you gotta relate to this. You gotta have this, because this is what we call having the fire within. You need to be a rebel. You need to be willing to be called crazy. You need to go against the status quo, because only then do you know you're truly doing something different, and that's the only way you can succeed. Going against the grain, finding new ways to do things, innovating, questioning things. And that's it. So good luck. I wish you all the best in your journey towards launching your next venture. If you do want to get started, we're the best place to start. We're looking for partners. We're looking for rebels, creators, innovators. Let's start things together. Let's grow it together. And let us be your partner, and let's make this world a better place. To Mars. Thanks, guys.